Welcome back, everyone. Thank you so much for staying with us. The Senate and the House of Representatives has passed a student loan bill. This bill scaled first, second, and third readings in both parliamentary sittings and became law on Wednesday. Tonight, let's speak with our guest for today, Honorable Gwega Nasiru Isiaka, Chairman House Committee on Student Loans, Scholarship, and Higher Education Financing. Jenai, good evening to you, sir. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Welcome to Politics Tonight.
Thank you very much, and good evening, and good evening to all our viewers at home.
Right, so, this is good news, but let me first have your impression of this bill. Do you really think this is a game changer, especially for the poor, for the children of the poor?
Definitely so. It's a major step in our education sector as a country, the student loan scheme is definitely not the only answer to all the issues that are involved in an education sector, but it definitely is one of those major things, and the extent to which it goes to solving or resolving the challenges is now an issue of policy choice. It's been used in different parts of the world, and various results are being gotten from it. Some very, very good, some not too good, largely because of other factors. But definitely in terms of what it does to the children of, to everybody, not just the children of the poor, it is out there for everybody to enjoy. At the end of the day, the long and short of it is that a student is taking a loan and a graduate or a professional is paying it back. So it gives a lot of comfort. It also allows the younger ones to also be involved in their future and in their education, as it were, and also give government a latitude, to begin to find solutions to that sector that is very, very important to our existence as human being, education sector. So it is good news. We all know what is going on around us in terms of the poverty level, and some of us that are politicians, we know how many people we have to attend to, and we know some of people that will even have to abandon studies. The student of NANS that came around to talk to us during the public hearing, told us of a student in one of the polytechnic that committed suicide, because they increased the fees to a particular level, and there was nothing she can do about it. So these are all the things that this scheme is meant to solve. So to answer your question, yes, it is one of those major revolutionary steps taken by the present administration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, to reset our education system. And I'm convinced in my mind that all things being equal, it will definitely make major changes, positive changes, as it were, to our education system.
All right. So when the president sent the bill back to the Senate and the House of Reps for enactment, what exactly was it trying to achieve?
Well, he was just being sincere. Just being sincere as a leader. This bill was signed to law in June 2023. What will have happened is to say that, because I did that, let's just manage it. But it was clear to everybody that what we had then, that was signed then, it was passed by the Net Assembly, so what was signed then was not particularly practicable, was not particularly applicable, was not particularly, working in terms of giving us the result. To start with, the only thing that was treated there was school fees, that the loan was available to pay school fees. As at today, school fees are not being paid in our federal institutions. The second thing is that the whole thing centered around CBN, the Central Bank of Nigeria. The CBN governor was the chairman of the special committee that was set up to manage that fund, and then appointed the secretary is appointed, not executive secretary, and then, then they also pick some other ministers to be part of it. The CBN of that time, get involved in some of those interventionist programs. But the CBN of today, like even the CBN governor has said, and that we also know that given all the challenges that we need to solve in our monetary system and our monetary policy, to go and put a CBN governor to now be like the chief accounting officer of a loan system was not too good. So that was another problem. There was also this issue that is only applicable, is only going to be available to people that to any students whose parents are not together earning more than 500,000 naira, and below. Meaning that if you're earning 45,000 naira as a parent, you and your wife or the couples, that means that your child or your son or daughter cannot have access to that, to that fund. And a retinue of challenges, but I think the major problem really was the structure. A fund is as good as the structure that is going to run it. There was no structure in place in that bill. I became the chairman of student loans. Just some 2 weeks ago, at the mercy of God and that of the speaker. And when the first thing I did was just to look at the bill. And then I said, look, this is not going to work. As I was discussing this with the speaker, that we need to find a solution to it, we got a call that even the executive was looking at it. And what they brought was just almost exactly the way we were thinking, that we need to rejig this. And that's exactly what happened. So when we saw those contents, we know that yes, at least, it's like you are driving a vehicle. We know that yes, this vehicle now with this structure can run. The next thing now is that who is going to run it, which is another thing entirely. So that is all about it. It is just, like I said, it's just all about sincerity of leadership, because we could just be managing it, knowing that we are the one that signed it just about a year ago. But we need to face the reality that, look, this is a very serious business. This is a very serious, bill. This is a very serious sector of our nation. And I'm happy that the president realized that. And as a true leader, he took that bold step. And what we have now, to a very large extent, has addressed some of those challenges, some of those issues, and we are very convinced that we should be able. Once it is signed into law, we just pass it. We are waiting for the assent of the president, and of course, appointment of the key officers into the scheme. I'm convinced in my mind that we have a formidable structure in place for us to take off from.
All right, impressive. So apart from the management structure, that bill also intends to address loan purpose, funding sources, eligibility requirements, disbursement, and repayment procedures. What kind of adjustment has been made now?
Well, in the first instance, in terms of the structure, the Nigerian Education Loan Fund that we have is now a body corporate that can be sued and be sued. So it now has a life of its own, and therefore, which was not in what we had in the one being repealed. Therefore, any fund going into it now will now be managed by a body corporate who can now enter into agreement, who can now enter into negotiation, who can now look how to even look for more funds, who can now take a decision and position on his own. Of course, guided by the board and other members. Then the objective is also very clear. It is to grant loan for fees, for maintenance, for other charges that is necessary and payable, and which a student is qualified for, unlike the other one that is only for school fees. So any student can actually apply now once it's meet the criteria to be set by the board to meet either the school fees, where school fees are being paid, or to meet maintenance costs, for the student, for the student, within the guideline that is given. So we have that. Then we also have we now have a board that now have very clearly stated role and responsibilities, to play in directing the fund. Then we also have some sections now that deal with funding. Section 17 of the law now clearly stated the sources of finance for the funding for the fund, which basically is 1% of all the levies, charges, taxes that are accruable to federal, inland revenue and to the federal government within a particular year. So we have that. They also cannot go into bonds and raising money, of course, with the approval of the president, so that they don't go to balloon our fund without going through process. They can also raise, we can also have appropriation given to them by the National Assembly. All those are clearly stated in Section 17 and Section 17 and 1 and 2. And all of these are are taken into what is called general reserve. It is from that reserve that loan cannot be created. It is from that reserve that we cannot have overheads and all of that met. And the cap is also given for that purpose. Another section of it is Section 23, 24, 25, and I think 26, that now talks about qualification. What qualifies you now to be able to access this loan? If you don't pay within a given period, what is the payment, repayment system that are involved? All those are also now very much clearly stated. Right now, unlike before, repayment starts upon graduation, but you are not going to be pursued for it until about two years after NYSC. And even if after NYSC, if there's a reason for you not to start payment, you can sweat an affidavit and send it to the board to extend the time, the times of repayment. Then, unlike before, where if your parents are owing a bank, you are disqualified from accessing the fund. Now we are not going to be, this door is not going to be doing that. We are not going to be visiting the scene of the parents or on the students. It's the only reason why it can be disqualified now is if you are enjoying a current, you are enjoying scholarships or another loan, either at a state level or at another source. Those are the only reasons. Otherwise, then the other one also have this issue of guarantee. You need a guarantee from a civil servant, from a particular level, and all of that. And when we ask ourselves, we have TFund now, for instance, and that is one of the things they are using. And we know the way all of these ones have been abuses. So what is very clearly required is for you to give a very full information about yourself, and in this age of technology, because technology is also going to be used very heavily in this whole thing. So we believe that with all of those, then we will be able to track, wherever you go. Then employers of labor also now have a responsibility. Before you employ, a graduate or a graduate of a university, college education, or even vocational and technical, which has now been covered by this loan, you are also duty bound to find out from Nigerian Education Loan Fund, the loan status of that particular person. And if you don't do that, there's also, it's also an offense that is punishable in a particular section 26 or thereabout of the law. So all of those are in place. But of course, at the end of it, the law cannot state everything that needs to be said. The board will, on an annual basis, roll out, the process, the procedure that is provided in Section 6 and subsection B of the law, where you will also need, where the law, the board will, on an annual basis or as the time you require, roll out all of the things that needs to be, followed in order for you to access the fund. So it's a fund that is available to all Nigerians. Not minding whether you are in federal, state, or even public, private, institutions. Of course, with different conditions, which will be coming out from the board as it goes. So, like I said, a lot of work has gone into this, and I'm, sufficiently comfortable that it will deliver what it's meant to deliver.
All right, but because the president wishes for this scheme, this initiative to outlive his administration, what kind of measures have been put in place for sustainability of the scheme?
Well, number one is the source of funding. the source of funding, for as long as Nigeria exists, Federal Inland Revenue Service will be making revenue from levies, from duties, from taxes. And this law, as of today, this fund will be entitled to 1% of that. And then National Assembly also can also appropriate money into it. Then they can also raise funds from the market, of course, with the approval of the president. So there are more than 7 or 8 sources of funding, for that purpose, which is stated. And then there are also checks and balances in terms of repayment, because at the end of the day, the only thing that can make it sustainable is that not necessarily immediately, maybe maybe in another 2, 3, maybe about in another 3 years, we begin to get repayment, for those that have graduated. Like I said, the loan are being given to students, but graduates, professionals, and entrepreneurs are the one paying back. And the payment is 10%, maximum of your gross income. That is the way it is fixed in the law. So those are all the sources. Of course, the other one is, the management, particularly the takeoff management. It is good for us to have a very good car. It is good for us to have a very good vehicle. It's also good for us to have a very good driver, particularly that would lay the very solid foundation, which cannot be, which cannot build on, later on in life. The other one is also about all of us, sincerity. Like I said, in all of this, it's not an issue of guarantee. As at today, given what is passed today, the call for guarantees and all of that have been removed from it, because we believe that those things can easily be abused. So therefore, why don't you face the reality of who we are, who are you? Give the right information, and there's a provision in it that the only major offense a student can commit is when he gives wrong information, and I think the penalty for it is about 3 years. In one of the provisions of the law. So all of these are the things that will give us sustainability. Anywhere in the world, it takes almost about 10 years or thereabout for student loan schemes to become self-sustaining, but of course depending on other ingredients like the tenor, ingredients like interest payment or not, ingredients like school fees or not, and some of those kind of things. So, but for us, our responsibility as the legislature is to make the law. Of course, we have not done that. We brought in the stakeholders. They also put in their input. We now have the law. Executing it is now in the hand of the executive. And like I said, in my view, the major factor that we just need is those people that can actually drive, that can dream the dream that we have in this law, so that we can build a solid foundation for the sustainability that you are talking about. And I said it personally when I was making my contribution at the stakeholders meeting on Monday, that look, this is not about anybody. Even those that are students today, in another 3-5 years, they will not be students again. But this scheme must continue. Even those of us that are in the house today, another couple of years will not be there again. We'll be somewhere else, and this scheme must continue. Therefore, everybody should put everything into it, such that the sustainability is given. I see it as a major game changer in the education sector of Nigeria. And that is something that I see. The president has been very magnanimous in terms of the push that he has given to it, particularly in the area of funding and another inbuilt checks and balances that we have into it. Is now to now put the right drivers into it so that the thing can move very well.
Honorable, I want us to be very clear on punishments for defaulters. I mean, you would agree with me that this is one of the biggest challenges that may alter the sustainability of the scheme. What exactly is the punishment for defaulters?
What the scheme has is punishment for giving false information. Of course, if you don't pay, it's either you don't have the capacity to pay. Maybe you are not employed yet. And like I said, you are meant to start paying immediately upon graduation, but you are not going to be followed up on that until 2 years after NYSC. So after 2 years after NYSC, if you still cannot pay, by virtue of the fact that you are not doing anything or so, you can swear to an affidavit, and that will be taken care of. But immediately you start, working, you are due for payment, and if your employers do not, deduct from it, there's a punishment for it. I think 2 years or 2 million naira, minimum of 2 million naira. If your employers do not deduct for it. So those are the things that we have in there. Oh, of course, if anything happens, God forbid, by way of death and all of that, there's nothing anybody can do about that. If the person does not have the capacity for a long time, a loan like this will have made provision for some of those kind of things. So if it is those kind of sincere reasons, there's nothing anybody can do about that. There must be an inbuilt check and balances to take care of some of those. But immediately you start working, you are meant to pay. And like I said, if as an employer, you do not ask so that you know the status, the student loan status of your student, of your employee or prospective employee, you are also liable to, I think, 2 years of a fine of 2 million, or minimum of 2 million, 2 million naira. That is what we have in the bill. Now, and even if you are self-employed, the same thing. That means it is you now that you are going to be liable. Because if, as a self-employed, if you have started working and now you don't pay, you also, then it is you now as the student who is now a graduate, who is now an entrepreneur, that will be liable. Those are the things that are in there as at now.
Right, but is there any part of the bill that talks about loan forgiveness?
Well, those ones will come naturally. I mentioned, I know that in some climes, after a particular age, once you reach a particular age and you still have, student loans hanging on you, it is automatically written off. In this case, there is no specific provision for that, much as I know. Guidelines from the board, as I said, as is given in Section 6 and Subsection B, might begin to look at things like that. But there is no provision for that, much as I know for now. But I do know that those kind of things are not unusual. For instance, we just heard what happened in US, where President Biden, has written off, I think today, about $6.something billion for student loan PE that are in public service. Those are some of the things, and those are the flexibilities that we have in student loan. It's also a way. One of the things I also failed to mention is that there are also some ground for disqualifying you from participating in this. If you are, as a Nigerian, you are a student, you are entitled. But if you have an existing loan somewhere, you are not. If there's a case of examination malpractices, drug, all those kind of offenses, or member of secret cult, all of those kind. Once it's established by the school, not necessarily by the court of law now, unless of course anybody goes to court to go and challenge it. Once that is established, then it's also a ground for disqualifying you from participating. So we have that, so that we can also use it to also correct a few things within our system. If it's going on well, and as a student, you also know that you want to enjoy some of these, perhaps it will also reduce, the extent of some of those issues and challenges that we have in our school. Right. So, loan forgiveness, that, as it were, there is no specific provision for it, as much as I know.
All right. Let's go on a break, and when we come back, we will continue this conversation. You're watching Politics Tonight. I'll be right back. Welcome back to Politics Tonight, everyone. Thank you so much for staying with us. Tonight, we're discussing the student loan bill, and I've been speaking with Honorable Boyega Nasir Isiaka, Chairman, House Committee on Student Loan, Scholarship, and Higher Education Financing. Honorable, thank you so much for staying with us on the program. Now, there was also this conversation about whether or not the conventional banks should be used to run the scheme or a specialized bank set up for this purpose. Which one exactly is it now?
The conventional banks will definitely be used because at the end of the day, we have moved away from a special bank being used. I mean, that was an option at some point where you could have set up an XYZ bank that is managing, the fund. But this time around, the option that is on the table is that the fund, is a body corporate that is standing on its own, and is going to employ professionals, and some of them, of course, will also come from some of the existing agencies, so that we can have a solid team. But of course, by the time the disbursement will start, it will have to be done through the banks, through the commercial banks, where the students will be expected to have accounts. So that is exactly what is on ground now. I mean, you realize. I mean, you remember that we used to have this Nigerian Education Bank, some years ago. I think 1990 to 2002 thereabout. But I think all of that is off the scope at this time. We have a fund that is standing on its own. I mean, that is having all the structures of a company that can go into contract, that can go into managing funds that are not specifically required at a time, so that it can also generate revenue from there, that can engage with foreign institutions, perhaps for the purpose of maybe grant or loan into the fund, so that the fund can continue to expand its scope and then be useful to the people that are meant to be useful for. So that is what we have. It is between this fund that we have plus the commercial banks. That is the structure that is being used.
But the Nigerian students under the aegis of the National Association of Nigerian Students, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, are looking to increase the repayment period of the proposed student loan to 5 years. 2 days ago, the group was talking about the fact that there should be the provision of student grants for students in the bill, seeking to establish the Nigeria Education Loan Fund. But as the Chairman House Committee on Education Finances Scholarship, is this something the House of Reps may look into?
Sorry, I didn't hear you well, the last part. You said Nigerian students 5 years, I heard that.
Yes, so the Nigerian students under the aegis of the National Association of Nigerian Students are looking to increase the repayment period of the proposed student loan to 5 years. So I'm asking, is this something the House of Reps may look into?
No, they actually came to the public hearing, and frankly speaking, they spoke very intelligently and very well. A few of the things they mentioned have been taken on board, but expanding to 5 years is not particularly necessary in this case, because we have said that immediately you graduate, you can start repayment. But they will not enforce it until about 2 years. And even if in 2 years you are not able to pay for one reason or the other, either for reason of job and all of that, you can actually put in the letter, supported by an affidavit, to the fund, and then the fund can give you much as it is necessary. So we feel that a lot of that has been taken care of. If we grant the 5 years the way they have said, it means that even those people that are ready to start payment immediately, we also say now they can wait for 5 years. And the sooner these funds come in, the better we also begin to serve other people. The better and the earlier it becomes sustainable, which is what we are really looking at. We're really looking at a situation where after so much deductions from revenue and all of that we said, the fund on its own can now begin to service others, further students from the recovery that they make. So that is the reason why that particular request was not really looked into. Incidentally, NANS is also represented on the board. So when they begin to put the guidelines and all of that together, NANS will also be, a representative of NANS will also be there to look at the guide. Like I said, the board will have to fine-tune this. There are a few things that we have to come up every year from the guidelines. So NANS is also represented on the board. And whatever is left that needs to be covered can be covered at the level of the board and all of that. And NANS is very well one of those that will be there. So that point is known. We debated it very extensively, but we just felt that if you do that, then you also now discourage people that probably want to start. They're probably lucky enough to have started something and then they want to start repayment, and that's why that was not taken up.
So apart from students of public universities, there's the call to also have students from private universities to benefit from this scheme. Is there a plan in place to bring them on board?
The fund is for all Nigerians, students. But I suspect that this particular, at the beginning, this is going to start with public schools. The one for, you know when you talk about school fees, you know what school fees is in private institutions. So even if you say you want to do for school fees, you hardly can capture that because of the way things are in the private institutions. But a particular scheme, but at the end of the day, even despite that, they are still Nigerians. So even if they are not going to be entitled to, school fees in the public, because of the volume of the quantum, they should be entitled to maintenance to a certain level. So I'm aware that thoughts are on to bring that on board. But what we have now, because this law is to give loans, grant loans, and for students or for Nigerians, either private or public. But I imagine that there will be different stream of funding that with slightly different terms that will be for them. So the private Nigerian students in the private schools and private institutions are also captured. But it's just that I doubt from what I have, from what I know, if they will start at the beginning of this, by the time this is going to start, which is 100% the prerogative of the executive.
All right, so because this is a reworked bill, let's talk about TFund. This scheme has been in existence since 1993, helping to fund infrastructure and human development deficits within the university system. So apart from giving loans to students, will the new student loan scheme support TFund in any way, especially human resource development?
I'm sorry, the line went faint.
Did you get my question?
Can you repeat it, maybe from a part of...
I want us to talk about TFund and if this reworked bill accommodates TFund. This scheme has been in place since 1993, helping...
TFund? No, this will run parallel with TFund. TFund is for infrastructure in the school, is to support infrastructure development in schools, and largely, there are also some grants and all of that for lecturers. That's what TFund is all about. This is about loan to students. This is about loan to students of universities, polytechnics, college of educations, technical and vocational schools that are licensed by the federal government of Nigeria. So that is what this one is. That's what this one is about. So there is a bit, there's that sharp difference, there. But of course, because they are all looking at education, there will be areas that they will be collaborating in the discussions that we have in this. The Executive Secretary of TFund, we benefited a lot from his experience in putting some of these things in place. So there will continuously be areas of handshake between, TFund and NELFO, this National Education, Fund. But they are looking at different sectors or different areas of education sector.
All right. Thank you for that clarification. Now let's expand this conversation a bit. In your opinion, what are the major challenges facing education in Nigeria?
Well, one of it is is what this is about. I mean, this is about to address. We need to get our students much more motivated. The level of poverty that we have, and then the challenges of today in the economy is affecting quite a number of them to not being able to reach the level at which they want to reach. I mean, this makes money available to you to at least run yourself, and as a student. We have that. I think that then the TFund is taking care of the infrastructure. I think the area that we still have some rumblings is from it's on the side of the lecturers. I was watching NASU and all of that, going on strike. I think there was also some warning strike or something of sort from the lecturers. So I think it's just that area that we need to look at. We also need to make our education system also functional. Time is changing. I also imagine and I hope that what is being taught in the schools is also going in line with the pace at which technology is changing the face of the world and what we need to learn. But what this particular scheme is doing is to at least take care of the side of the student reasonably. I mean, it's not that it solve all the problems, but at least reasonably, in a way that they will also have a say in their own future. He who wants to read medicine, for instance, but who cannot read medicine because of the amount required to read medicine, or the number of years that is required to read medicine, and because of that he wants to go and do something else, can now say, okay, now I can go into it. At least I know that after I've graduated, 2 years after my NYC, 10% of my income can begin to go into repayment, and then and that is it. So we also believe that with that we will have a lot more enlivened and motivated students. So so those are some of the things that
Honorable, but do you think these factors you just mentioned are responsible for the stunted growth of technical and polytechnic education in Nigeria?
Do I think that what?
These factors you've just mentioned, do you think they are the same factors responsible for the stunted growth of technical and polytechnic education in Nigeria?
No, I think that one is that we as a people must also come to the realization that technical and vocational education has come to stay and is gaining ground. There is still this dichotomy. We still place too much emphasis on certificates over ability to do. For instance, this dichotomy between HND and BSc, as far as I'm concerned, should not be around us any longer. I've said it many times. I'm a product of a university. I'm an accountant. I left after my degree, I sat down for ICANN with polytechnic students, graduates rather. I know of polytechnic graduates that did better in terms of when they qualify, and in the other fields, So I think that after going through that initial, training, we should allow the ability and the capacity of individuals to determine how far they can go, and not, begin to place, a lead on how far we can go by virtue of the fact that you went to the HND or you went to BSc. When we were doing, like you said at the beginning, I was the chairman of Federal Polytechnics Committee up until about 3 weeks ago. And, these are some of the things that we face. And then I also think that this NRSQ being pursued by the MBT, the National Board for Technical Education, which will now certify our technicians, I think we also need to have it. Let us know if you are a carpenter. Yes.
Honorable, in less than 1 minute, I want us to quickly talk about your own personal project, which I find quite commendable. Last month, you rolled out a comprehensive education intervention plan to address the challenges faced by rural communities in your constituency. I want us to talk to us about the strategic interventions and what stage are you on this in less than 1 minute.
Well, thank you very much. When I took this job, when I won the elections, I did an economic plan of my federal constituency, 15-year economic plan, the first of its kind in that part of the state, and or even in most places. And I discovered that education is one of those major problems that we have, particularly because of where we are located, where by the border. The entire western flank of my federal constituency borders Benin Republic, and and education is just very challenging. So what I did was just to look at four areas, and that is in the area of recruiting teachers, in the area of infrastructure development, in the area of moral and ethical values of our people, and I think one or two areas. So and we are pursuing this. We are looking at this. We want to be able to ensure that we enhance and improve education in our area. I mean, we are also all graduates of that community. I went to primary and secondary school in that community. So there's nothing I have achieved today that an average person from Ohube, an average person from Imeko, an average person from Moriwi cannot achieve. But we need to get involved. We need to get them more motivated. So that is basically what that thing is about.
All right. We wish you the very best on that project. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I've been speaking with Honorable Gweg and Nasiru Isaka, Chairman House Committee on Student Loan, Scholarship and Higher Education Financing. Thank you so much for joining us on Politics Tonight. We look forward to more conversations with you. Thank you
very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for watching. That marks the end of today's episode of Politics Tonight.